We are live.
Awesome.
So welcome to the Coaching Collective Live. I am your host, Michelle Oliver. Can you still say that, hostess?
Yeah.
I am Michelle Oliver, and I'm here today with the Coaching Collective Live. And I'm so excited to have Carrie Brett here. And hopefully she will be here every single Thursday. We're working on what the ideal time is. But Carrie she's actually the host of a podcast called Shot at Love, and she is a dating coach. And your program is called Your Best Shot at Love, correct?
Yes.
Thank you for being here with me today.
Thank you.
Today, we're going to talk about something really important. What is it, Carrie?
Well, today's topic is being okay being alone, being single and loving it, and not starting dreading the weekend on a Wednesday. Like, how do we do things and take control over our lives to make ourselves happy first before we pull in a partner? And I think that's a really good place to start, because a lot of times when people decide to get after dating and, get on these dating apps is because they have just experienced a heartbreak. They just had a breakup and they are reeling from that. And what happens when you have the bottom fall out or a breakup is that those feelings of being alone is amplified even further. So it's really difficult to sit in those feelings. And also, you lose your sense of self. You lose your identity a lot of times. I know that happened to me, where my whole world was made up of somebody else. And so making the changes and shifting my life, I had to look at uncomfortable things. I had to look at things, my accountability. And once I could own my mistakes and own maybe the fact that I just didn't have information, I could set up a new blueprint. I could set up a new future by looking at the fact that the common denominator was me. And how can I
more pain, right? Yes. But possibility with that pain.
Yeah. Well, that pain is not fun. So people run from that pain, and they are running around making poor choices in the next partner. So I ended up covering this topic of being alone on my latest episode today, Single and Loving It, with with breakup coach Janice for Michella. It's hard to say. I had to break it down in 3 pieces there. She's wonderful. Her story is fascinating. She ended up in Bali by herself.
Wow.
Totally not even able to be alone.
Oh.
And yeah, so she ended up following her boyfriend to Germany, and that ended. And then she was a writer, so she went to Australia as a way to run away from the pain. And she built this life for herself in Australia, and realized that she was holding on to these new friends and this new opportunity so tightly that she couldn't leave it. So she decided to try to get a work visa. And that meant she had to go offshore, and it could take between 2 weeks and 6 months. And so she's trapped in Bali.
Oh, wow.
For 6 months.
Gosh, that's not funny. Sorry, I'm laughing.
I know.
I can't wait to go hear this. This drops today on your podcast.
It's out today. And I was taken by her story because of her honesty. And I always love that when people get into the truth of it, and how she did that hard work to heal her heartbreak. And the the number one thing that she did was learning to stand on her own.
Okay, so let's talk about that from a dating coach's perspective. Can I ask you some questions about that?
Sure.
So, because you've covered a lot of ground here already, Carrie, like there's this pain, right? So most people, you said, go on to a dating app after a breakup, or they're thinking, I need to do it, and they're trying to recover from trauma and pain and do something big. To go on a dating app and start again is a big deal. So what's your coaching around that? How do you, like, if I came to you and I'm like, I can't stand the pain. It's Wednesday and I'm thinking about what am I going to do on Saturday? I've been lonely. He left me, or we broke up, or whatever the thing is. And you're feeling the emptiness of that. You want to fill it, and you kind of think you should fill it with another. It's like there's a term for that, right? The after breakup, what is that?
I think
Bounce back dating or something like
yeah,
that.
no, it's called like the
There's some kind of a phrase for that. I can't think of it.
I know there is. It's like
Escaping us.
the rebound. The
The
rebound.
rebound. Yeah, the rebound. So the rebound relationship. So how do you help people navigate from the lonely state to feeling good about being on their own, just being with themselves?
Well, how do you eat an elephant? It's like one bite at a time. This is a big shift that you are going to create in your life. So little by little, you get there. And how I saved myself was one swipe at a time. And it did help me, because I can remember sitting in my studio, crying into my coffee, just devastated, talking to my 25-year-old assistant, Michael, and he couldn't stand to see me suffering. And he said, why don't you go on Tinder? And I was like, what is Tinder? And he's like, I'll show you. So because he was tech savvy and 25, he created a profile for me. And I had a date like in 2 seconds. And he was like, no, Carrie, not that guy. He's not good enough for you or something. And I was like, well, he's like, you've been on it like 2 minutes. You gotta wait and see what happens. And so within that moment, my whole life changed because I had opportunity. And these dating apps are just a tool and an opportunity for you to meet and pull in new people. And I loved it. I was obsessed. I didn't like being alone. I didn't like dating, but I liked that my life changed in an instant because of all, this wealth of opportunity. So
I want to interrupt you for a second there. There's two things that jumped out that could really help people, I think. Number one, you're saying I moved from emptiness, crying in my coffee, to opportunity. So that's like a quantum leap, right? Even if you have to take it 100 times a day, all of a sudden you see possibility instead of pain. That is such a big thing. So you're helping people do that. And then there was something else, but I forgot what it is. So go ahead.
Well, that's the shift, is that you're not going to get there overnight, but if you believe in yourself and you take a chance on yourself and you owe it to yourself to try, two things will happen. Either you find love or you'll learn something about somebody else or yourself. So it is a learning experience. So it's a positive anyways. And the way I looked at it was, and I'll get, I'll have 2 drinks and a steak. So it's like,
oh my gosh, that's so funny. Go, okay, that's hilarious.
So it's like, I'm gonna have the filet, and I just looked at it as, what am I going to get out of this? And it doesn't have to be 5 hours. It can be, you can leave when you want, and you have control over your own dating destiny. And unfortunately, it becomes too big and too scary that people are like, yeah, I'm not interested in dating coach. I'm not interested in hearing, they just close off in so many different ways. And I attack the limiting beliefs. The limiting beliefs are, I wrote a whole segment on this. I believe I have a podcast episode on it. I do, actually, one of my first minis that I created during the pandemic, and it's called A Million Reasons Why. And so there's a million, and I actually wrote the million reasons why in a snowstorm in my car outside of Apple, because I was going to have one of the tech people there who teach like a course of how to create an iMovie. And I knew I needed to create a movie around.
Oh, that's wonderful. I don't think I've heard that one. So everyone can go to that, find that podcast, and I'll put the links in this, in the description of this after we get off, to Carrie's podcast. And also you have a course that you teach, so people can hear the episode today and they can go back and hear your because I'm pretty sure that that's the first thing that, like, if anybody's single and wanting to date, they're thinking a million reasons why not.
Right. Right.
Right. So that's what you go through first.
So once we get through that, I have to remove people's blocks first, and they don't even know that they have the blocks, and they're surprised. And I had blocks too. And that's blind spots that you can't see the forest through the trees. You can't see it within yourself, but you can certainly see it with your girlfriends. Like, how many times have you said, like, he will call again or he won't call again? And that friend is calling you up on the phone and saying, what do you think? Well, if you're calling up your friend to say, what do you think? You already know the answer. The answer is within us.
Yeah.
But we don't want to look at it. So there's a lot of soul searching, and there's a lot of learning that comes within this journey. And I learned, and everything I teach is very painful life lessons. But I wanted to share the information that I uncovered during my 2 years on Tinder, in the trenches as a 43-year-old with a 13-year-old child, single working mother. And that's why I developed my podcast, Shot at Love, so that someone's day is easier. Someone feels less alone, put it that way.
Yes, I love it. So when we're talking about this being okay with being alone, and like today's podcast is going to be about, or you're releasing it today, about being okay, being single, or what did you call it? The best, being happy, loving, being single.
Right. Single and loving it.
Single and loving it, which I can totally relate to. But that journey of when people are looking, like, that's when you start questioning, usually out of a painful experience, right? And then I know what I wanted to bring up when you said you first got on Tinder and you're like, oh, it's almost like I got like, don't keep the first fish necessarily, right? So you don't have to just jump into it. How do you help people navigate that? Like, what people want is to feel better again as quickly as possible. Right. So you're helping them actually step more into sometimes a painful realization that the common denominator could be you.
Right. So you're coming from a place of not feeling great about yourself.
Yeah.
And you want that dopamine hit. You want that, hey, Carrie, pretty photograph, or, all that. So you want that to fuel and like feed your sad soul at the time.
Your sad soul. And you're with everybody else on the date. Like,
everybody else is like,
well, how many other people on the dating app are wanting to feed their sad souls? I don't know.
I think loneliness and being isolated has never been more amplified. And
no kidding.
Yeah. So people don't know how to connect, and they hide behind their apps and they hide behind their devices because it's easier than to pick up the phone and you've got to get off the texting pretty quickly. And because I was a busy business owner, I was like, TikTok, my friends. I am busy. I am not your pen pal. If there's a date, you'll get a response. But I ran it like a business, and I ran it like a boss, and I ran it like a guy. And guys don't.
Oh, wait, say that again. You ran it, your personal dating experience. You ran like a business, you ran it like a boss, and you ran it like a guy. What does that mean?
Well, I was not going to do what everybody else did, and I was going to be memorable, and I was going to stand out. And because I had a lot of experience being in a male dominated field, I knew things to avoid. And I did things that were so crazy, but it actually really helped. I'm a long texter, and I get creative at night. Like, that's when I'm busy all through the day. And then at night, I'm like, wow, let me invent 20 different businesses. And, it's when my mind starts expanding.
You're creative at heart. Yes.
Yeah, so a lot of
creative, good balance of all of it. So go ahead. Yeah.
That's when I start to think, because if my daughter's in bed and work's done and my eyes are too tired to edit, then I'm like, oh, let me write this long, unbelievable text to this guy that I'd like. And then I'd catch myself and be like, no, this is not a romance novel. You're not starring and This Is Us with this person. Like, get it out, walk away. And if I really wanted to write that note, I would go into my notes on my phone and I'd write it. Like, dear John.
So you managed your emotions, and
Yeah.
it's like you found a way to create perspective and strategy.
I had a lot of strategy, and I knew sales, and let's face it, this is sales. And the screening process, it's all about your vibe and your energy and your worthiness, and really that's what it's about. And so I took it away from them, just like you would do in sales. There's no overselling in my world. And if they don't see the value in what I have to offer, next. So I was always the first to exit the text chain thread. And I was always the first to cut the date short and get off the phone. It's so hard to do. But in the beginning, you've got to rely on strategy, and you have to be strategic to be a gamer and to be like a baller and to beat these players at their own game.
I got to breathe here. Yeah, no, there's so many things to talk about around this. I think I'm really hoping you can come on every week, because I think you will help so many people talking about this. And I want to pull it back again to that was your strategy. And to engage in something like that, you have to be okay with being alone, right? Because you have to be okay with like you can't do that if everybody that you talk to, you're thinking, this is going to be my solution. Oh, I feel better, so maybe I should go further. Like, you really have to understand what's going on. It's so much more complex than
it is complex. It's like emotional, it's psychological warfare at times. And
yes.
And I protect people. Because I'm like, okay, this is where there was no boundaries, and that's what they do. They push in the beginning to see who they're dealing with. And the more challenging that you are, in a nice, friendly, easygoing, breezy way, the more they're interested. And men are hunters.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just didn't know at the time. Like, I did a lot of things that worked unbelievably, and I would break the internet. Like, it would be like, what did I just do? But at the time, when I did it, I was like seriously pulled over on the side of the road, breathing into a paper bag in my car going, oh my God, I just did this. But that's where the real, like, that's where that was like that defining moment. And it was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. So how do I coach? Well, because I was in the trenches for years doing it. I was in the jungle, literally, like in camouflage. I figured it out. I know it. It hasn't changed.
Yeah.
It's changed a little since I cracked the code in 2015. I mean, there's different components. Like, people want to know everything. They want to know if you're vaxxed, how many boosters. Like, there's a lot of different things.
Oh gosh, there's all of that.
Yeah, there's that.
Yeah, that became a big thing.
But people are people. And the stuff is as old as time, you know.
It's true.
So there's the things that I figured out are invaluable, and they really set you on a path to success and saves you a lot of time. That's the biggest deterrent, honestly, of these dating apps, is that people want to click on Amazon. And how did Amazon get you? Because they're like, hey, what you want? If you have to wait 2 weeks for it, you probably won't add to cart. But if it's 2 hours, you're like, give me 5.
Yes. No kidding. We are an immediate gratification. We expect it. I don't know. I think it's interesting because you said that this thing about being alone, it seems like there's a real polarity there. Like, either people are like, I'm just fine alone. I don't want to do it. I don't need, or the other end of it where they just jump into the first one that comes along. So to really navigate that and be in a strategy that's going to be effective, I think you've got to be willing to be alone and explore and be alone. And like, it's like a middle ground, right? What's your perspective on that? And how do you, I don't know. I can't even imagine what you do, because I think it's so complicated with everybody's. I think we lie to ourselves a lot about relationships, like being in it, not being in it. Do we want it? Do we not want it? All of that. It's hard to be alone and be honest, which is where a coach can really, really help. Honestly, we were talking about this earlier.
Right. It's true. It's hard to be honest. It's hard to have to identify where you're weak and not strong. But when you do that, you can address it. You can make that change. And so what happens to people is they're like, and I talk about this in the episode before, Janice, is I had Brian Howie on, who is the founder and creator of The Great Love Debate, which was on Bravo. And he said that he kept doing the live shows, even in masks, in different states, because he never missed a beat. And that was the path that he chose. But what he saw was people were like, yeah, I'm good. I'm not doing this. I'm not dating during COVID. I'm going to do yoga in my house, drink my wine and watch Netflix, and hang out my dog. I'm fine. And I think that was a choice. Or you could have made your house a command center and get on all the virtual dating apps and like have your own little cooking show and make drink, like you could do all these fun things and have these fun dates. Like, people were going on virtual dates, and DoorDash was showing up and someone would buy them dinner, like have the same dinner. Like, it was really amazing.
So fun. Yeah.
So you could go one of two ways. You could embrace the changes and go for it. And I think, love or marriage, it's not for the faint of heart. So you have to commit to anything you do, whether that relationship that you're in, like, we're going to look at our hard issues and talk about those hard things. And I had to work through a lot of things with my boyfriend during COVID, and it was scary. We'd never lived through a pandemic together. And I'm like, hey, I'm going to be honest about these challenges on my show. if they arise, because I just believe in honesty. I just think you go further. And that's the one thing, that vulnerability and that honesty is what will set you apart on a date. 100%.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a question, since we started with this idea of being single and loving it. What are your thoughts around, maybe you could speak a little bit to this idea of people who are happy being single? You're not excluded from love relationships or romantic relationships, but maybe you just see them in a different way. Like you consider yourself single. I don't know. That's an interesting road. Do you even understand what I'm saying? Like you could be dating, but you're not really necessarily even seeking a long-term relationship with someone.
Right.
Probably a word for that too. Casual dating, is that
Yeah,
what do terms mean?
Okay, so
what exactly to me, it's a crazy world. I just do what feels right to me. I don't even know what the actual vernacular is, but
right. Well, it's changed a lot. So back in 2015, 2016, I would waste a lot of time and a lot of money going out with people who were non-intentional daters. So they were looking for the pen pal, looking for the ego stroke, looking for that online companion.
mm-hmm.
And that's fine if that's what you want, but that's not what I wanted. And now you can get very specific within your profile and say, looking for a long-term relationship.
Yeah.
And say what you want. That way you weed out the people that don't want the same thing.
Yeah.
So there are people that are like, oh, let me try to, wade in this water and see what happens. And those types of people, you've got to identify, because you're not going to convince them. Even if you're a supermodel, you're not going to convince them.
I think if you're on a dating app, you know what you're looking for. When I was on a dating app, I loved that you could say that this is what I don't want, this is what I want. And then as you grew in that experience, and you're like, okay, well, now I know I definitely don't want this. And then you can add that in and weed people out like a sales funnel. Yeah. So that's great. And it can be different when you're just out in the world, I think. I don't know. You're the coach.
No,
I feel very confused in this area. So
I think it's all the same. And I do. I think your people, like your friends, when you hear in real time, like by their response, if you're gonna have a connection or a chemistry, or it's gonna be like a good yoga, like a good partner in a whatever sport or whatever. Like you just know your people.
Yeah.
And so I think you have to be open and willing to try. And again, it goes back to what I say, you're going to learn some things. And what do you have to lose? You don't have anything to lose. You have everything to gain. But that also goes around your mindset, your belief system, your energy. It all is one big thing. Like it's all connected.
It's all connected. Yes. And back to this single idea, you really, when you have those periods where you are single, it is a tremendous opportunity to become a better version of who you are.
Absolutely.
And look at like, if I want that person, who do I need to be to be attracting someone like that? So there's a lot of, all of it is good, because I think you grow with people. And if you're smart, you're growing without them too. You're not sitting on the couch continuing to watch Netflix and drink even now. Like, I get it that some people were doing that for a period of time. But I love what you shared about there's always opportunity, right? Like what you're really saying is there's always this opportunity. Tinder, yes, like some people sit on the couch and contract. Some people were having dates online.
Right.
So what a coach, like I know in business, and I'm sure this is true in dating, when you're working with a coach, they help you see the opportunity and draw out who you are and what you really want. But sometimes that process can really be painful because you
Yeah.
have to look at you.
You, you know, it's funny. I was at the gym this morning and I saw this woman and she had a coach and he followed her everywhere. And I've hired trainers and I've learned from trainers. And I lived with a trainer at one point, so it was like, I understand all of it. And this woman was doing great at the gym and good for her. And I have my own method of training myself, but I'm out there and I'm doing something. So the thing is, it's like, you can go out and do it on your own. Sure, you can. Or if you want to jump ahead a few steps and to have someone say, the quicker way to have results, like my boyfriend's lost a lot of weight. So he gained weight during COVID and he lost it. So now he loves fitness. So he'll say, Carrie, you got to stop doing the same 4 moves. Like you've got to shake it up.
Yeah.
And you have to make changes if you want results. And then that reminder, I'm like, oh yeah. So then I go the next day and I do something different. So it's that sounding board. It's that other perspective that is really good to have if you don't know a lot about dating or yourself. Like it's just like a really good accountability partner who helps you save time and avoid heartbreak.
Oh,
And
completely.
that's huge.
Completely. And when you're talking about relationships, I think that's probably the area that we are most blind.
Yeah.
Because we have all these, like you were talking about limiting beliefs, this subconscious, unconscious stuff, and we're acting out of these areas, all of our interactions. And most people are not going to call you out on that. I mean, it's not a girlfriend, girlfriends are not coaches. Girlfriends are drink and cry with them when you need them, right? Right. Like that's what we tend to do. Like everything's okay or nothing is okay. And it's not the perspective a coach would have. So yeah, I love everything that you've shared so much today. Really a lot, actually. And we learned a lot about you. So I think next time, I don't know, whatever topic you can bring to the table, we covered a lot more than just being alone today.
Yeah. Yeah. It was fun. So, I mean, this is cool. This is the first time I've ever gone live and I loved it. So see, new opportunity, try something new. You don't know if you like it or you don't, but I'm glad that we did it.
I'm so glad we did it. And I know it's going to help a lot of people, anyone who sees this, and they will come in and listen to your episodes. And then we'll put a link down there if you want to learn more about what Carrie's doing with coaching. And you can also join the Coaching Collective, which is a free summit where a lot of coaches are being interviewed on all these different topics. And you know what's interesting too about dating is that I think people that are really good at business can be terrible in the dating space and vice versa, right? So the advantage to having coaches in these different niches is wherever no one is good at everything. It's just impossible. So when you bring up the fitness, it's like, oh yeah, that's the area where I need somebody to just kind of remind me how to get there faster. So you can go, and in business, I did that for years. Like you can go beat your head against the wall, or you can go with someone that's been where you are and you can go faster. And it's more fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I mean, people want results. It's all about results. And
results. Yep.
And for me, I had to get really strategic because I didn't want to waste a lot of time.
Yeah. So coaching is the new Amazon, everyone. Hire a coach and you'll get results in 2 days with Prime.
You can. I mean, I've found love for people in 48 hours. So
It's really true.
Yeah.
Really, in 48 hours.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's a story. Why don't you bring that to the table next week?
Okay.
Come back and we'll leave you hanging off the cliff and I'll stay hanging off the cliff. Carrie will tell us about, we'll call it the Prime membership approach to dating. how to not only get a shot at love, but actually get results in 48 hours.
There you go.
That would scare the heck out of me. Okay. Okay, you are so charming and I love talking with you. Thank you for being here and sharing. And we will see you next week. Okay.
Thanks so much. Bye.
Ciao for now. Bye, Carrie.